Psalm chapter 150, Through the Bible. Part 3. Why worship? Now we want to answer the question, why worship? At this point, we move our emphasis over from praise ye the Lord to praise ye the Lord. We move the accent over to the verb, to that which is active. Praise ye the Lord. Very few people actually worship God. There really is no such thing as public worship. It was the great Chrysostom who put it like this: the angels glorify, men scrutinize, angels raise their voices in praise. Men in disputation, they conceal their faces with their wings. But man with a presumptuous gaze would look into thine unspeakable glory. Oh, today, how many actually go to the church to worship? Somebody, in a very facetious manner, said that some people go to church to either close and others to close their eyes. I wonder how many go to church for the purpose of worshiping God. Worship is divine intoxication. If you don't believe that, there is a fine illustration of it in the book of Acts. On the day of Pentecost, Simon Peter got up and preached a sermon. We talk a great deal about that sermon, but actually it was an explanation to the people that these spirit-filled men were not drunk. Drunkenness was not the explanation. How many would get the impression that we are intoxicated with God today? We need an ecclesiastical ecstasy. We need a theological thrill in this day in which we live. There are 3 words that we must associate with worship, and these 3 words denote an experience of the human heart and the human soul as it comes into God's presence to worship. The first of these words is prostration. In the Orient, people are accustomed to get down on their faces. In the West, we talk a great deal about having a dignified service. Now don't misunderstand me. I am not contending for a posture of the body. Victor Hugo once said that the soul is on its knees many times, regardless of the position of the body. I'm not trying to insist on a posture of the body, but we do need to have our souls prostrated before God. The 2 prominent Bible words are the Hebrew, hishtah, meaning to bow the neck, and the Greek, proskuneo, meaning to bow the knee, to God. And today we need to bow before God in heaven. The book of Revelation does not tell us much about heaven, but one thing we are sure about: every time we read of someone in heaven, they are either getting down on their faces to worship God, or getting up off their faces from worshiping God. And friend, if you don't like to worship God, you wouldn't like heaven, because that is the thing with which they are occupied. Most of the time, they are worshiping God, prostrating themselves down before Him. Beloved, we need that today. When my spiritual life gets frayed and fuzzy at the edges and begins to tear at the seams, I like to get alone, get down on my face before Him, and pour out my heart to Him. Friend, when was the last time you got down on your face before God? When was the last time that you prostrated yourself before Him? Oh, it would do us good. It would take us out of the deep freeze. It would deliver us from the shell in which we live. It would create within our hearts a different attitude if we would learn to prostrate our souls before God. The second word that goes with worship is the word adoration. It is a term of endearment. There is passion in that word. Oh, worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Psalm 96, verse 9. Worship is a love affair. It is making love to God. Michal, the first wife of David, resented his devotion to God. When King David brought the ark into Jerusalem, the record tells us, "So David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of the Lord with shouting, and with the sound of the trumpet. And as the ark of the Lord came into the city of David, Michal, Saul's daughter, looked through a window, and saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord. And she despised him in her heart." 2 Samuel 6 verses 15 and 16. She despised him. Sure she did. She discovered that David loved God more than he loved her, and that he was making love to God. Worship without love is like a flame without heat. It is like a rainbow without color. It is like a flower without perfume. Worship should have a spontaneity. It should not be synthetic. It should have an expectancy, a tenderness, and an eagerness in it. My friend, some types of worship compare to going downtown, sitting in a department store window, and holding the hand of a mannequin in there. It has no more life in it. It has no more vitality in it than that. Oh, to have a heart that goes out to God in adoration and in love to Him. A young fellow wrote a love letter to his girl. He waxed eloquent and said, "I would climb the highest mountain for you. I would swim the widest river for you. I would crawl across burning sands of the desert for you." Then he put a PS at the end. "If it doesn't rain Wednesday night, I will be over to see you." A whole lot of so-called worship is like that today. It will not take very much to keep us away from God.